Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about square roots and radicals. Now the deal is, in all reality, these are kind of the same term. Square roots is probably just what you've heard radicals called before in your kind of mathematical careers, as I like to say. A radical is just this symbol right here. I know, you're thinking, that's a square root. Well, this is a square root. But radicals not only talk about these, but also what we call cube roots, or fourth roots, or as big of a number as you can possibly think of roots. Now what's the difference between these, you ask? Or maybe you might be asking, what even is a square root? Well, radicals and roots are very directly linked to exponents. So I'm gonna just mention that real quick. You know, if we say something like 3 squared, we know that means 3 times 3, or 9, right? That's pretty straightforward, we know that. What a square root does is it takes this number at the end, you know, say the square root of 9, and it asks us what number times itself would make that. It tries to break apart that number in 2 identical parts, meaning the square root of 9, well, that would be equal to 3, because 3 is the number that when multiplied by itself makes 9. And again, that's what the square root asks. What number times itself makes the number under it? Now, what do you think it might mean whenever there's a 3 here or a 4 here? Yeah, it asks us what number times itself 3 times makes the number in here. Let's just say, for example, 125. The cube root of 125. That asks us what number times itself and then times itself again makes 125. Well, you may be thinking to yourself, I know 125. That's made up of 5 times 5 times 5. So 5 times itself 3 times is 125. You'd be right. So the cube root of 125 is 5. Now, we don't really deal with cube roots and fourth roots, or honestly anything bigger than square roots all that often. So that's really where I'm going to put the focus of this video. One thing you might see is square roots and fractions, which I know sounds like a scary combination of things together. But it might look something like this. The square root of 16 over 25. Now you may be thinking, how the heck do I know what the square root of a fraction is? Maybe I know some of the basic ones, you know, 1 squared, 2 squared, 3 squared, 4 squared, all those. But I don't know the square root of a fraction. Well, let's think about it kind of like exponents. When you have a fraction to an exponent, then what's really happening is the numerator is to that exponent and the denominator is to that exponent. The same thing is happening here. Even though that square root is over the entire fraction, it's really that the top and the bottom of that fraction are being square rooted. So you just have to ask yourself, what's the square root of 16? Well, what times itself is 16? That would be 4, because that's 4 times 4, right? And then what's the square root of 25? That's 5, because 5 times 5 is 25. So we would be able to just say 4 over 5. That's our square root. Let's do one more fraction problem. Let's say we have the square root of 1 over 81. So we know that this would actually be written as the square root of 1 over the square root of 81. And we can can simplify. What's the square root of 1? That's 1. And what's the square root of 81? 9. So 1 over 9 would be our answer. Before we end the video, I want to go over just our common square roots, the stuff that you're probably going to see more often than most. If we have something like the square root of 1, the square root of 4, 9, 16, almost skipped that one, 25, 36, there's a few more, but I'll stop there. Now you may recognize these numbers. These numbers on my left-hand column are our perfect squares, right? We've talked about those numbers that are, the products of a number times itself. Perfect squares are able to be made into perfect square roots, I guess you'd say. And I would recommend being cognizant or being able to identify all the way up to the square root of 144, at least with perfect squares. Now, if you have a square root of a not perfect square, let's say you have the square root of 12, that's not a perfect square, right? There's something else we do. There's going to be a separate video for that. Check out my channel and you'll find that other video there. But for the purpose of this video, we're just talking about these perfect square roots. Things like 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64, 81, 100, 121, 144, those kind. If you have any questions about this, feel free to drop them in the comments below. I'll be more than happy to help out. Otherwise, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.